Hi y'all, welcome and welcome back. In this video, we're going to explore the major types of feminist ethical theories. One of the most important things to understand about feminist ethics is that it's not a single unified system. Instead, it's a collection of approaches that grew out of different historical moments, different cultural contexts, and different experiences of power and exclusion. These approaches do not always agree with one another, and that diversity is part of their strength. Each one highlights a different dimension of moral life that traditional ethical theories often overlooked. We'll focus on 7 major approaches: liberal feminist ethics, radical feminist ethics, Marxist feminist ethics, socialist feminist ethics, multicultural feminist ethics, global feminist ethics, and ecological approaches. These perspectives show how broad the field really is and how many questions can be asked when we consider the impact of power, structure, and social location on moral experience. Let's begin with liberal feminist ethics. This approach emphasizes equal moral consideration and the importance of removing barriers that prevent individuals from participating fully in social, political, and economic life. The central concern here is fairness. Liberal approaches ask whether institutions are set up in ways that include people equally and whether everyone has the opportunity to exercise autonomy, agency, and moral voice. This framework works within the existing systems and aims to make them more just by expanding access and representation. Radical feminist ethics takes a different approach. Instead of working within the current systems, it asks whether those systems are themselves structured in ways that produce domination and exclusion. Radical approaches focus on the deep patterns of power, social hierarchy, cultural norms, and institutional arrangements that shape what people can do and how they are perceived. The key insight is that moral life cannot be separated from the structures that govern everyday experience. If those structures are unjust, then the moral theory must address the root causes, not only the symptoms. And here is where I want to make a point. A lot of people misconstrue what radical feminist ethics are because they think of the word radical in terms of the way that that word is defined now. Radical means, from the original ancient Greek root of it, radux means to get to the root of something. So radical feminists are trying to get to the root of the problem within the structures of the system. Marxist feminist ethics focuses on economic systems and material conditions as foundational elements of moral life. It examines how capitalism shapes people's opportunities, vulnerabilities, and responsibilities. Marxist approaches ask how labor is organized, who performs what kind of work, who benefits from that work, and how economic inequality influences moral possibilities. According to this view, ethical analysis must consider how economic exploitation and material deprivation shape moral experience. Socialist feminist ethics builds on some Marxist insights but expands the analysis to include social and institutional structures beyond economic systems alone. Socialist perspectives look at how power operates through interconnected systems: political, economic, cultural, and social. They ask how different forms of domination reinforce one another and how institutions collectively shape moral life. Socialist approaches highlight the need for collective solutions and cooperative social arrangements in order to create conditions for ethical flourishing. Multicultural feminist ethics brings attention to cultural diversity and the ways moral norms are shaped by cultural dominance. This approach emphasizes that no single cultural perspective can claim universal authority. It highlights the importance of understanding how cultural narratives, traditions, values, and identities influence moral life. Multicultural perspectives remind us that ethical theory becomes stronger when it listens to the wisdom of multiple cultural communities, rather than assuming that one cultural viewpoint represents everyone. Global feminist ethics expands the analysis to a worldwide scale. Instead of focusing on a single society, this framework examines transnational power relations, global economic inequality, historical legacies of colonialism, and the moral consequences of globalization. Global approaches ask how decisions made in one part of the world affect communities in another, and challenge moral theories rooted in narrow local viewpoints. Finally, we have ecological approaches in feminist ethics, or ecofeminism. These perspectives connect environmental issues with patterns of domination and exploitation. They argue that the attitudes and structures that harm marginalized groups often also harm the natural world. Ecological approaches broaden moral analysis beyond human-centered concerns and ask us to consider our responsibilities to ecosystems, non-human life, and future generations. They challenge us to rethink what counts as a moral community and how environmental well-being is tied to social justice. When we look at these 7 frameworks together, we can see how differently each one understands the sources of moral problems, and how each illuminates something that traditional ethical theories often ignored. Liberal approaches ask about fairness and access. Radical approaches examine deep social structures. Marxist approaches analyze economic systems. Socialist approaches highlight institutional interdependence. Multicultural approaches center cultural diversity. Global approaches analyze worldwide power dynamics. And ecological approaches situate moral life within environmental interdependence. As you work through this lesson, I encourage you to think about what becomes visible through each framework. What questions does each ask? What problems does it bring to light? And how does including diverse perspectives expand our understanding of what morality requires? In the next video, we'll evaluate the advantages and challenges of these approaches and consider what each adds to the broader field of ethics. By comparing their strengths and tensions, we'll get a clearer sense of how feminist ethics contributes to moral philosophy and why it remains such an important and evolving area of thought. All right, y'all, that's all for now. If you're interested in more videos on philosophy and ethics, take a look at the videos posted on our channel. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.